I record here once every 3 months, and every quarter it gets prettier and prettier. It's very exciting.
It seems like it's so nice and like bright.
I know. Well, I mean, it was great here before, but now it's better because we've been doing it for a year, as you now know from your
Yes,
stalking.
I did a full on, went straight down to Neha and worked my way up.
Oh,
Yeah, I hit play on all the people I knew.
Great. Yeah. I'm so glad. Neha kicked it off for
rated
us.
5, on
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Wait, I need to tell, we are recording, yes? So I need to tell you, friends, there is a lovely review on our page. Someone who says like, oh my God, this is excellent. And then rated it 1.
Oh, fail.
Someone, I am positive that if the person meant excellent, they meant 5, but hit the wrong. Anyway, it's messed up our rating. If I don't ask anyone to ever rate, but you know what? I'm going to.
Yeah, do it. You should.
If
Don't be
Ashley
shy.
did.
If I can do it, you can do it.
It's true.
Yeah. Pretty easy. Click 5 stars.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. About 30 seconds and click 5 stars. That's it's quite the ask. I appreciate that. I really do. People ask all the time. They're like, rate, review, subscribe. I haven't gotten there yet, but I have people like you who do it willingly.
I fully believe that, like, if you want people to support you in your own career, and especially that mine is being reinvented and kind of nascent at the moment, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy all the books. I'm going to rate all the podcasts. I'm going to do all the things, support all the people, because that will eventually come back tenfold. And now I've just told you my dirty little secret.
Oh, but I think it does come back tenfold.
I think it does.
You came in here with cookies.
Yeah, man.
You know who came in here? The 2 people, the 2 other people who came in here with a gift, which I don't know if you're a big fan of Deepak Chopra.
Yeah.
And this cold open has lasted forever. I'm sorry, friends. I'll introduce you to Ashley in just a sec. But so Deepak Chopra says, like, in his 12 principles of life or whatever lovely book, he's like, bring something when you go somewhere. So you and Jess Crux made a sourdough bread.
I'm sure she brought you something much healthier than what I brought you.
The cookies are gorgeous. I mean, they made a splash.
I did not make these cookies for anybody listening to this. I did not. I bought them on the way here.
And the other person was Natasha of Twin Delicious. And both of those episodes, for whatever, they came so full of heart, and it really resonated. I mean, I'm a big fan of every single thing we put out, but it is a special experience when someone comes in and they're like, no, I'm gonna bring all of me.
Well,
So,
this is your
thank
space, so it's when you come into someone's home, you bring a gift.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Habibi. So Ashley Habib. Is that how you pronounce it, really?
Habib. It's my married name.
Yeah. Who are you?
Hi, guys.
What you doing here?
Who am I? This is a fabulous question. I sat last night until midnight to try to figure out how to write this bio because it's such a complicated thing to try to put labels on yourself. It's like, do I say what I'm about? Do I say what I do? Do I say what I'm not doing? Or what I have done? And that's my number one fear when I walk into a room and someone says, oh, what do you do? I'm like, well, right now I'm existing and I am trying to survive.
You're healing.
I'm healing.
You're grieving.
So my name's Ashley and I'm a mom to a 7-year-old daughter who is just a big bundle of life and joy and fun and also drives me absolutely up the wall.
Naturally.
Yeah, naturally. But I am also a young widow. So I'm 36. I lost my husband 10 days before I turned 35. He was 41 and it was very sudden. It was an accident. And since then, it's just been kind of, figuring out this new, God, I hate when people say new normal, but that's how I'm going to say it, new normal.
Yeah.
Figuring out how to parent and be a human while grieving and while trying to kind of figure out this new identity and this new space that I'm inhabiting.
Well, we met, I don't know, maybe a week ago. And one of my favorite people in the world, Svenja Oswald, who has also guested on the podcast, takes my arm. She's the warmest person.
No, she's just looking at her is a warm hug, but she also gives excellent hugs.
Yeah, she really does. And she loves you so much. I said, hi. I said, hi, nice to meet you. And then I walked away at this event, this lovely event that Neha Rush hosted. And Svenja takes my arm with the most loving, strong grip and goes, you have to have Ashley on your podcast. And I was like, okay, great. What's she up to? And she's like, well, she has a real story to tell. And when we connected, Ashley and I, you told me about how you lost your husband. And when I asked, how did you get through it? You said, other people who have been open about this experience, even if you didn't know them, have helped you feel less alone.
Yeah, definitely. It's going through an experience like this, it takes all sorts of community, and that can be the people who are super close to you and who are literally physically there. But sometimes it means finding community in people you don't know. And I have a very love-hate relationship with social media. I find I've used it a lot over the years. When I was an expat, back in the good old Facebook days, when I first moved to Egypt in 2012, and I was kind of, wanting to keep in touch with friends from home, and so it helped me feel a little less lonely at times throughout my, international moves. But then in this experience, I reached out to other people saying, you know what, I just went through this. Does anybody else know anyone or have any resources for people like me, people who have lost a spouse or a partner so young? And someone pointed me in the direction of, someone else's Instagram handle, another Instagram, people who were out there, and, also having the very public story of Amanda Klutz and, what she went through. I ended up reading her book maybe a month after my husband passed.
Wow.
I didn't think I was going to, and then I just picked it up and kind of read it cover to cover in basically one sitting. And that was tough because we shared having an ICU experience. So that mine was much shorter. My husband's was much shorter than her husband's, but and in obviously a much different time. And, she was going through this in a very fraught, very unknown, environment. But so having these stories as kind touchstones is so important, because widowhood is, or, loss, whatever, this experience has reminded me so much of being postpartum and being in that really ungrounded, very nebulous state where you're just
your skin's on inside out.
Yeah. And I just went through this huge, significant experience in my life. And, it hit me, the day my husband passed away, that because I had to be the one to make the decision to take off life support. So, and I remember thinking, God, I've actually given birth, and now I'm having to be in this position. And this person, who was here with me was such a pivotal person and was the only person who made me feel, grounded and safe in my life. And that was a really huge moment. But if I learned anything from being postpartum, it was that, you need to ask for help, and you need to slow down and not try to do everything yourself and not try to be a martyr about it all. Because it takes a village to do it, especially if you're parenting through the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to thank you for being that person to whoever's listening right now.
My pleasure. I mean, it's not my pleasure, but it kind of is my pleasure. Like, it's such a double-edged sword. I mean, I spent many years of my life kind of being in service to others, like as a doula and a yoga teacher and a breastfeeding educator and a mentor. And, I've kind of always known that this was my life's work to sort of be. Basically, I studied all the wrong things. I should have just gone into psychology and become a therapist and just done that. Maybe later, when my daughter's older, I'll go back to school. But I really believe in storytelling and really believe in human connection, because that's why we're here. That's all we got.
Yeah, when a person dies in the Jewish faith, we sit Shiva, which is just like a 7-day mourning period, but one of the rituals is to tell stories about the person who's passed, because stories keep them present. Mm-hmm. They keep them alive in a way. And I really also believe that stories are holy.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I found out that your last name was Habib, you say it again?
I say it Habib.
Habib. So in Hebrew, they would call it Habib, right? Like,
yeah.
So it's a word adopted from Arabic to Hebrew. It's an Arabic word. I really believed that it meant friend, because people would call each other Habibi, Habibti.
My love, yeah.
But it's my love, which is so interesting.
It comes from the root word hub. And if you are a native Arabic speaker and you're listening to this, and I'm sorry, I've completely butchered.
Ditto. I don't speak Arabic, and I love you.
I studied Arabic for a little bit when I lived in Egypt with my husband, and I was super lucky that we had friends who spoke, kind of a mix of Arabic and English all the time. So at least I could start to understand context of things. But I mean, it's fallen by the wayside over the years.
Yeah. But it's such a beautiful thing, because you adopted his name, which means love.
Yeah.
And what a love.
I know.
Oh my God.
It's a really special last name. We had a really special story. We have a special story. And I love to tell these stories. I love when people ask me about him. I love to talk about him. And, there are days where I can tell the whole story of who we were from, beginning, I don't want to say end, but to what it is now, without shedding a tear. And then there's other days where I'm like, like I'm a puddle,
Yeah. So tell us.
Oh, gosh. What do you want to know?
Well, what's his name?
Oh, his name is Tariq.
Tariq in English.
Yeah. So we met here in the city in 2011, I want to say.
In New York City.
Yeah, in New York City. And it was a really interesting time. It was kind of post Egyptian Revolution. Strangely, I was working on a project in grad school with another Egyptian friend of mine. We were working on looking at kind of Egyptian national identity through language for kids who were raised outside of Egypt. And it just... all of these things kind of culminated, and I met him at our yoga studio, and we got to talking. I was like, "Oh, funny, I'm working on this project," and he's like, "Oh, well, here's my number. If you have any questions, let me know." And I knew he was going to be moving back to Egypt within like a month and a half of us meeting, and I texted him one day and said, "Hey, before you leave, let's get lunch." And he texted me back and said, "Let's get dinner." And the rest was history. And I'm pretty sure we were inseparable for about a month. And then we were long distance. And then I made the move after I finished grad school. And really the rest is history. We were in Cairo for a couple years. Then we moved to Switzerland for his job. And then we moved back to the States. And then COVID happened. So,
wow.
It was a really, really, it was one of those, I hate saying the term soulmate because it seems so cliche. But, sometimes you look at a person and you're like, oh, you're my person. And that was really it. Like, he was my person.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of reading your writing on him, and it's really so beautiful. It's not cliche to say a soulmate, and the way you like talk about romantic love is so profound. You know, it's just because there are like love songs written.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't take away any of the potency of that experience. It's important for us to hear about like deep, meaningful partnership.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's funny. I started writing and kind of sharing as an outlet because I did not know what to do with the feeling. Like, I didn't know what to do with all of this emotion that I had. What do you do when you love someone so much, when you've spent 10 years with someone and you can't love them in person anymore? Like, what do you do?
So what do you do?
Like, when you break up with someone and like you're the one who's like lost and really sad and they've moved on, you're like sending them clandestine text messages or like emails or whatever. You can't do that across the void, right? So I just started writing. I started writing in my journal. I started writing, you know, on my Instagram, just wanting to kind of keep, you know, him alive for myself and for his loved ones, and to kind of collect these memories so that I wouldn't forget. Because again, like, being in this postpartum period, grief brain is like a thing, like baby brain.
What is grief brain?
It's so foggy, you know, you just forget things, and other things become so clear. But it's very easy to forget details.
Like short-term memory? Is that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just like living everyday life is hard.
Yeah.
How does that manifest when it comes to taking care of your kid
Oh, dude.
and dealing with their grief?
Yeah.
What is that like?
That's, I mean, I was so fortunate that when we had our, you know, the last day in the hospital, my brother-in-law called one of his best friends who's a child psychologist. And she, so funny, she was at a wedding in Egypt. It was like a Friday night, I think. And it was like so loud. I could hear all the music behind her. And I'm in this like really quiet hospital. And it's like such an incongruous situation. But she was talking me through an exact script of what to say, like how to tell my daughter this happened.
There was this, maybe tell us a little bit about what happened, just so that that's sort of not like a dangling question.
He had an accident. It was a very bad fall that resulted in severe brain damage. So he spent 6 days in the ICU, and then that was it.
So there was no heads up.
No heads up. This was just really, really sudden, really tragic. It's one of those stories that, I mean, as I've been living through it, I've just been doing it. But, you know, when you hear stories about other people, you're like, God, that is so sad. And when I kind of think about it, if I, you know, have an out-of-body experience, I'm like, yeah, dude, this is really horrible and tragic and devastating and shocking. And I don't even think that my own like nervous system has caught up yet. You know, I don't think I've fully, you know, adrenaline is now starting to slowly wear off, you know, a year and a half later, because you really do have this feeling of adrenaline of like, I have to survive. I have to get things done. I have to parent. I have to be present. I have to do X, Y, and Z things.
I have to make sense of this, even though it's nonsensical.
It's nonsensical. Really. And then all of a sudden there was a point maybe last month, kind of leading up into the holidays, leading around, you know, the 1 year mark, 18-month mark. And you know, my husband's birthday is in, you know, right after the holidays. So it was kind of like, I stopped and I was like, oh my God, I was so deep in this griefy pit for a couple of weeks. And it was kind of the first time that I had actually let myself sink into that grief.
Yeah.
You know, I would get up and wake up and get my daughter ready for school and take her to school. And then I'd come home and I would just collapse.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And parenting during this whole process has been, I mean, I'm so lucky because my daughter is such a bright, resilient, beautiful little soul. She's lived through an international move, a pandemic, and the death of her father within 3 years. So she's really, really, really resilient.
She's 7. So, the past
She's
3 years, right?
7. Yeah, 4 years. 4 years.
And I'm like speechless, really. Child,
It's
sweet
like
little girl.
Yeah, it's and I sometimes she can be so so childish and yet so wise at sometimes that I sometimes forget that she's just this innocent, little human who has had to deal with some really tough stuff really early.
Yeah.
And I think that, one of the things that we were gifted with a lot of beautiful, children's books on grief.
Wow.
We read a lot of those in the early days over and over and over and over again. And we made sure, I had photos of our family and Tarek all over the apartment. There was never a day of hiding from our grief. I mean, I would sometimes literally hide. Like I remember, in the first summer that it happened, so many mornings of just getting her settled on the couch to watch TV. And I would just sit behind the counter on my kitchen floor, literally in a puddle of my own tears with like, not tissues. I would have paper towels to soak it all up because it was just so tough and so unreal and painful. And we were talking about parenting, right? See, this is my short-term memory. Just all of a sudden, my synapses start
I guess it's not just short-term memory. I think you're probably remembering that time being a puddle.
Yeah.
Body
literally,
being a puddle of
literally
tears.
a puddle of just, magma. Like I was just I had no idea what to do, like with myself and my energy and her, and it just was so tough. And, thank God for friends like Svenja who would drop by.
She loves you.
Yeah, I know. I love her so much. And like my best friend would fly in from New Orleans. I had a friend fly in from Switzerland with her son, like my daughter's first friend.
Wow.
From when they were babies. She bless her, left her other 2 kids in Geneva and brought her son. And we had, a wonderful 5 days together. People really showed up.
Yeah.
And sometimes that makes me so much more emotional even than thinking about the actual loss, because people just showed up in a myriad of ways. And if it hadn't been for that, I don't know what I would have done.
Do they still?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
I would expect it to sort of fall off, in the postpartum period, which is different.
But similar.
But similar in that, you're literally walking around with, your skin inside out. But different. People, they forget to lend a hand after a while. Because it is a blessing.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of life. But I'm so glad to hear that.
I mean, it's a little different. It's not like, meals coming every day or, the constant check-ins. And I have, I definitely have more of a handle on myself. But, there are still friends who fly in from abroad to come visit, best friends who call, people who will pick up the phone at any hour when I need to call. Now it's more of I think once you get through, a couple, a year and a half, couple years, it's kind of on the person who has experienced loss to sort of reach out. And I'm trying to get a little bit better about that now. Because also I start feeling like, well, maybe I should be,
over it?
Better.
No.
Maybe I should be stronger. Maybe I should be able to handle it better.
No.
But it's not true. You don't handle it any better after a while.
Yeah, it's only longer of the time without him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's very painful.
Which part?
That the more time goes by. I was actually just listening to Anderson Cooper's podcast, the one he has about grief now. I can't remember what it's called. And he had Stephen Colbert on, I think, for their second episode. And Stephen Colbert lost his dad when he was 10. And Anderson Cooper also lost his dad when he was 10. And they were both talking about when they hit the age that their father was when their fathers passed away. And like every birthday I think about this now, or like every milestone that goes by, I'm like, oh my God, at some point I'm going to be 41 and then 42 and he's stopped in time. And that's, if you believe, I had this fear at one point. I remember like waking up in the middle of the night, like if you believe in any sort of afterlife, which I'm not sure that I do, but, I had this like weird dream of showing up in whatever afterlife it was and me looking like a total crone and he's still like, glowing and youthful and handsome and, probably even like he's probably been shredding it at the gym like this whole time, like doing all of his favorite things. And
then you get together and you still love each other.
And hopefully like there's this magic of like, ooh, you're magically not a crone anymore. You're like a beautiful 25-year-old again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's harder, I think, the longer time goes by. Certain things are harder.
Yeah. Well, because people are probably maybe you assume that it would be better, and that assumption in and of itself is shitty.
It is kind of shitty.
I read one of your posts around dating someone else. The idea that...
Yeah.
I mean, it was a while ago, I think, but I'm sure people ask you all the time.
They don't, thank God, because I don't really want to answer that to other people. But, I think there is, I've had conversations with friends, people who have said, well, aren't you going to, or he would want you to, or when you're ready, or is it time yet? Or, there's always this kind of tiptoeing around the subject, and I'll be honest, I think about it all the time. I mean, I'm 36, and I see my friends traveling with their husbands, and leaving the kids and going on a nice holiday, or just date night on a Friday night. Guys, don't take your date nights for granted. Do your damn date nights. Like, do it. I know it sounds cliche not to take it for granted, but like, really take your date nights. Just do it. And I think I could probably go the rest of my life never having a date night. Like, could happen.
Like ideally?
No, just probably.
Just probably?
I wasn't very good at dating anyway in my 20s. I don't really know how I would be at dating now. And also,
you landed a real cute guy.
I did
He seemed like nice.
He is also
and handsome.
Also
like
really one of a kind, and anyone who knew him would tell you those are some real big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
And I, unfortunately, would most likely end up comparing most people to him.
Yeah.
Who wasn't perfect. Nobody's perfect. But there's some very, very large shoes to fill. Not physically large, but, he was a very, very big force. And I just, there's sometimes where, like, as a young person, I'm like, yeah, maybe I do want to, like, connect with another person again.
Yeah.
And then I really think about it, and I'm like, no, I don't. Definitely not right now. I mean, I'd never say never, but not right now.
Yeah, you're in the middle
Even
of something.
logistically, like, that shit's hard.
Being a single parent is hard, huh?
Yeah.
Like, what is it like?
Oh, God. It is exhausting. I will say I was always kind of the emotionally attuned parent anyway. And the person who was responsible for sort of the day-to-day, care of my daughter. But, the pandemic really shifted things in that he was working from home, and There was some more time in the mornings for him to, play with her more. And then I'd be able to have my yoga practice, and they would like make their scrambled eggs together. And, there was just a shift of having him around more. And so we had gotten very used to that. And so, yeah, single parenting is tough because you don't have anybody to really bounce things off of, right? Like, you don't have anybody to, and I don't know how people single parent with multiple children. Like, you guys are rock stars because I don't know. Like, one is tough enough. But
I just went to a party of a kid in my son's class. The mom is a single parent, and I'm like, I look at her and I'm like, you goddess. And it was such a fun party, and like, just like, oh my God, she's 2 kids. It really is amazing.
It's definitely a journey.
Yeah. There's also this meme that I'm often reminded of where it's like, the world is like, you're amazing. Mothers are amazing. And the mom is like, no, actually, I really need help. Oh my God, you're a superhero. No, seriously, I'm drowning. Wow, look at you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. There are definitely days where I go to bed at night and I'm like, how did I survive today? Like, how did I do it? And there are mornings where I get her to school and I just go get my coffee and I come home and I'm just like, oh my God, that like hour and a half in the morning is just, it's a lot.
On the nervous system.
It's a lot on the nervous system.
And it's normal.
Yeah.
It is normal and to be expected from like do you know polyvagal theory? Mm-hmm. Yeah, from like a polyvagal perspective, a nervous system perspective, to be like, that was Mount Everest, and now I go back into freeze mode. I need all of my faculties and for 3 o'clock pickup, for 5 o'clock pickup, whatever it is, and bedtime.
Yeah. Bedtime.
Yeah, bedtime's hard.
Bedtime is hard.
Bedtime's hard.
Especially because she's like, oh, I don't want to go to bed till like 9 o'clock now. I'm like, but why?
You're like, I love you.
Like,
but
your brain is growing. Please go to sleep.
I know.
Please go to sleep.
Please go to sleep.
Yeah.
My son's been waking up at 5:45, and I'm like, it's not good for you, and it's definitely not good for me. Please stop.
I kind of wish she'd start waking up at 5:45 again, because then she'd maybe go to sleep earlier. Like, I'm more of a morning person than a night person, so I'd much rather deal with her in the morning than I would at night when I'm like ready to check out.
Yeah. And fall asleep.
Yeah.
So what gets you through? What makes you feel a little bit better, or is feeling better not the goal necessarily?
I think obviously feeling better is the goal, because no one ever wants to feel like this. And
Like
if you don't
like right
understand
now?
what like this means, hope and pray that you don't understand what this means until, a much later date. But I think, the goal is to feel better. The goal is to feel more grounded, and to feel more like I have a handle on this new life. I was very used to, like, we moved around, and, I had a handle on living in one country. Then we moved to another country, and I got a handle on living in that country. Then we moved back to the States, and I had to get a handle on living back in the States. And also in between there was motherhood, and I built a business in Switzerland and then and in Egypt. And, it was constant. I always felt like I was constantly making an effort, constantly putting out effort to evolve and grow and show up for all of these new stages and life experiences. And, as your child is growing, you're having to show up for all those new stages because every day is different. And now, I'm like, this is another new phase that I have to get a handle on somehow. Trying not to control it. You can't control anything, but you can basically the goal is to find a state of alignment and flow. And that's what I'm working toward.
Are there certain tools that you lean on?
Movement. My movement practice is like everything to me, whether it's yoga or Pilates or doing the class. Any of these things, like they keep me sane. You know, making sure I'm like really like the whole oxygen mask metaphor applies here really strong, making sure that I'm doing all the things that keep me healthy and well and present, you know, and always being flexible to adjust and say what's working, you know, between my daughter and I. Like I'm looking at our life as a relationship, you know, between two people. It's not just a mother, like it's, I don't know. I really have to think of it in terms of like any sort of relationship when you're working or living with someone. What's working now? What's not working? How can we make this work better? What are her needs? What are my needs? You know, in the middle of that Venn diagram, what overlaps, and how can I organize our life in a way that is optimal for both of us?
Sure.
And just, you know, sometimes getting through means eating a pint of ice cream while like watching Gilmore Girls.
Totally.
I mean, I'm trying to get my like single mom education from watching like Gilmore.
I know, they're so cute. Oh my God. And they have such a good time together.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's, there's sometimes you just need to really zone out. And then I have to remember, you know, to bring myself back and be like, I need to get on top of this. And I need to like get on top of my life and be, you know, kind of the powerful person that I know I can be, because you lose a lot of power when you experience such a tremendous loss. Like you lose a lot of your sense of safety and feeling like you know what the world is all about. And so kind of reclaiming some sort of sense of myself, you know, having to be the head of a household suddenly. That was not a job that I had to really do. You know, we, especially as expats, you know, and I wasn't really able to work as much as a new mom and, you know, living in a foreign country. You know, eventually I was, you know, working more casually, but, you know, I'm now having to sort of figure out how to stand really firmly on my own 2 feet. Not only for, you know, the sake of my daughter, for her to have a role model and a mentor in me, because I never want her to look at me and say, God, my mom's a hot mess. You know, that's my goal in life.
You're not a hot mess at all.
I just want her to be like, okay, Mom, you got your shit together. Like that's really all I want.
You definitely have your shit together, just as a reflection.
Oh,
just to be your,
Thanks. I don't feel that way.
But of course you don't. I mean, the fact that you could get to that event, that you could get here and talk about your life experience. I mean, I often refer to my time in OA and doing the 12 steps, but like it takes 12 whole steps to get to the mentoring part, you know? It takes a long time to get to the part where you're sharing your story as a means of inspiration for others, even through the pain, you know, and I don't know that the pain will ever go away. I mean, I'm no one to speak on that, but even just the fact that you can share your story in the hopes of helping someone else, that's not hot mess behavior, right?
Hashtag hot mess behavior. I think, you know, it's not out of the ordinary for me to like share my hot messiness, because I would do that a lot when I was writing back in Geneva and I was kind of connecting with new moms, and I would write about like my struggles. Like I thought I was going to be like mom of the century, right? I thought I was going to really have a handle on it. And like I was going to be this fabulous, wonderful, super zen, very centered, perfect mother.
Perfect.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No.
Not how that goes.
No, that's not how that goes at all. And I would share that all the time. I'd be like, you guys, I did this, this, and this today. I feel like I really fucked my kid up. Ooh, can I say that? I was really afraid I was going to have this like Roy Kent moment on here where I would just start dropping F-bombs from, Ted Lasso, like
Oh,
Roy
yeah.
Kent,
You're more than welcome to.
and, I was just always like, but I feel like it was so important to share because I never really heard, stories before I became a mom of like moms literally losing it, like moms feeling just so overwhelmed and so out of body. And I mean, I just didn't take to it as easily as I thought I was going to, especially like after she hit 18 months and she sort of became this actual kid. I was like, oh God, I just finished the baby books. Now I have to read parenting books. Like what? Like, how do I do?
I know.
I have to parent now. I don't have
fast
to
and furious.
Like I don't have to keep her alive.
I know.
I have to parent.
I know.
What is this?
I don't know what this is. This is crazy.
Yeah. So that, I don't know how we got on this topic, but.
Well, sharing.
Yeah, sharing.
And you share
and sharing.
You write beautifully.
And I like, thank you.
Is that what your new iteration is?
Yeah.
Is going to be?
I'm trying to give myself more permission these days. Loss really drives home your humanity and what you can do with this, how's Mary Oliver put it, this one like wild and crazy life. And we say no to ourselves a lot. No, we shouldn't do this because it would be better if I did that. No, we shouldn't do this or that or whatever. And I kind of put the kibosh on a lot of my creativity for a long time. And I was like, I don't want to live like that. Like if I've got this one life to live and God knows how long I've got left and I want to set a good example for my daughter, I want to be like me, like authentically me. And so that means, doing something really scary, which is, putting my writing out there for the world. So I'll be having a Substack come out soon-ish when I get that together.
I was sort of bummed to see that you're private on Instagram. Maybe by the time this comes out, you'll decide to undo that.
I
because
have a hard
your writing
time.
is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to... this is kind of the purpose of the Substack, is to share more, but in a way that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable because I'm not a super, super public person. I feel very private about my life in general, but, it's a balance that I want to try to keep. And also, keeping my daughter's privacy is important to me. And, not telling her whole story because that's her story, That's for her to decide later on. But yeah, I'll be touching on, motherhood and grief and wellness and kind of what's gotten me through recently, especially since around the 1 year mark of his passing, was really honing in and zooming in on these like really beautiful things in life, really small things. And this was also, it was funny when I heard Stephen Colbert saying this on Anderson Cooper's podcast, where he said something about like grief and loss has made him crave beauty in the world and crave beautiful things. And I hadn't really thought of it like that myself. But when he said that, I was like, oh my God, that resonates so deeply because that's what I've been kind of working towards in myself, is really like focusing on the smallest, most beautiful details, because that helps me center and ground and puts life in perspective, I was back in Switzerland in June, and I didn't want to share all of these beautiful sweeping photos of, Lake Geneva or the mountains, but I wanted to hone in on gorgeous details of my friends' homes or the way the light played on the wall or, beautiful bowl of fruit or, these are the little tiny things that kind of make up our daily life. And when we start to overlook those, when we start to overlook beauty, well, what do we have, right?
Not much.
So that's kind of the focus of my work moving forward. I will most likely also start teaching yoga again privately.
Great.
And kind of opening a mentorship program for moms.
Great.
And so, yeah, those are the things that are in the pipeline right now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is so amazing. Just going back to that mentor role, if there is someone, the hope of this podcast, I told you when we met, but the hope is that like if someone lands on this page that they'll be represented, that they'll be mirrored, that they'll be supported by someone on the other line who gets it. And if there is a young widow out there who's experiencing loss, I'm wondering what you would tell her in her ear.
You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You have to go through it. And that's really, the only way forward is through. And that is something that I've repeated to myself over and over and over and over again. And if you are going through it, know that you're not alone, for one. And use tools, whether those are other people in your life to help, whether it's also don't go down Google rat holes. Like those are Google holes are bad news bears.
Yeah.
But I think lean on the other people in your life who you can trust. Let people help you. Accept the dinners and the childcare, and make sure to carve out space for yourself to process. Get a therapist.
Love a therapist.
Get a therapist.
I mean, get a therapist no matter what.
Get a therapist no matter what.
Like, get a
but also
therapist.
get a I just saw something yesterday
also
that was like,
get a therapist.
someone asks, like, are you seeing someone? And the person's like, a therapist or hallucinations? And yeah, a therapist, especially someone who is specialized in grief and loss, and talk to that person regularly. Don't just talk to them when you think you need to. And write it all down. Write everything down. Open that notes app on your phone and write it all down. Write what you're feeling. Write the lists you have to make. Write it all down.
Because of the grief brain?
Because of the grief brain, but also like you'll want to remember at some point. Whatever it is that you're feeling in that moment, you'll want to remember. And it's so helpful to also process what you're feeling and not keep it bottled up, because it can be difficult to talk about what you're experiencing, with another person, because you think you sound absolutely crazy. Like I remember being in when my husband was in the ICU, and I remember sitting there. I was at the hospital for 22 hours a day. I left only to go home, shower, eat something, go back. And I was very fortunate that we had a lot of family and friends who were with us at the hospital. But I remember being shocked that I had to pee. I remember being shocked that I had a period during that week. And I'm like, why is nature still working? Like, why is it reacting? And I remember being like, that's not something, and now I'm sharing this publicly with all the world.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was like, God, people are going to think I'm nuts if I say this.
No.
So writing it down really helped. Writing letters to your spouse or your partner or whoever, say the things that you want to say to them. Don't bottle that up.
Yeah.
Don't bottle that up. Put that somewhere. Write it down. Write the letters, because you have to find a way to give that love to your person. And yeah,
There's this beautiful folk song that I sing. It's about this, his name is Schmelke Kaczyginski, which is a very interesting name.
Schmelke.
Schmelke Kaczyginski. he loses his wife. He lost his wife in the ghetto in World War II, and he starts the song saying, "Ich blunge in Ghetto von Gessel zu Gessel." I roam the ghetto from street to street, and I can't find you. And it goes on and on. It's beautiful poetry, and I'm gonna send it to you at some point. But what's so beautiful and timeless about this experience is that he also says, Frühling, nimm zu mein Treue. He says, springtime, take my sadness. He sees the flowers bloom and the birds chirping. And it's like the whole world is still moving. How is that possible?
And that really was a shock to me as well, that I was like, how is it? And the timing of this was particularly strange because this was also the summer where we were all kind of coming back post-ish pandemic. You know, things were opening up. Like, I live downtown New York, and the bars were packed and the restaurants were packed. And we as a couple had been starting to look forward to doing all the things that we had wanted to do in the city that then got interrupted because of COVID. And, you know, when we moved back, we really wanted to, you know, go out with our friends and have date nights in the city and do all these things that we enjoyed. And now all of a sudden, you know, it's middle of June, and June is a very hard month because there is the anniversary of his death, followed 2 days later by our wedding anniversary, which was also the day we buried him. And then there's Father's Day and my birthday, and it all just...
It's really a month of grieving.
That's a big... June used to be one of my favorite months, and now it is a very, very tough month, but it's also... You know, in New York, one of the brightest months. It's one of the springiest, most beautiful early summer, vibrant. Kids are getting out of school. You're excited to like go out and, you know, sit on a terrace somewhere. Now that we have terraces, which is very exciting. And walking around the city was hard. Oh, my other piece of advice for anyone going through this. If you are about to watch a show or a movie or read a book, for the love of God, crowdsource trigger warnings. Crowdsource, like, any information you can get about that piece of media that you are about to consume to make sure that you are not going to, like, absolutely lose it when you read it or watch it or, you know, listen to it. I had a friend, one of the second seasons of Modern Love came out, and it's about this woman who, you know, is driving her late husband's car, and she's talking to him in the car, and a friend of mine was like, Ashley, do not watch this for right now. Great. Like, don't watch it.
Great.
Just, that was something I really had to... Sex in the City. Oh my God, why did it take her so long to call 911? But, you know...
I didn't see it.
Oh, yeah, no. Or the newer Sex in the City. Oh. Anyway, you know, those were things that I could not, like... I had to ask friends, like, should I watch this? Is there anything I should be aware of?
I'm so glad you have such good friends.
I'm so glad I have such good friends. I don't know what I did in a past life to deserve these people, but like...
In this life, you seem pretty great.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. I know, I feel fortunate that the community is not just in New York. It's all over California, New Orleans, Switzerland, Egypt. Like, there are just people everywhere
who love you and
Tarek. And who love him and who love my daughter, and you know, they just show up, man. That's really special. So yeah, if you're going through this, don't be afraid to say yes to the people when they want to show up, and ask what you need for. Don't be afraid to say, I need you to take my kid for a couple hours. I need to go sit in the spa. I need to go for a run, or I need to just lay in my bed and not do anything. The other very, very practical piece of advice, if you are a list maker, which you will likely need to be if you're the person having to do the final affairs, which is really hard, make final affairs, dude. That's no fun. Make a quadrated, I don't know if that's the right word, get a piece of paper, cut it into fours, or, separate it into fours and make your lists. And that will really help keep you
Make
on
your
track.
lists are you saying
for example,
important and
like
urgent?
a list of okay, so there's in one quadrant you have final affairs, things that you have to, do, checklist. Then there's the things, for your kid. Do you have school activities you have to sign up for? Do you have to, whatever little things you have to do for your kid. Actually put yourself up at the top. Put yourself at the top corner and make a list of what you need. What do you need to do for your home? Do you need to take care of bills and whatever else you need to do? Just make your list and divide it and write down everything. Don't let it be overwhelming. That's really, and ask other people. Ask other people as much as you can. Do you have a friend who's gone through this? Do you know anybody who's gone through this? You never know where a light will come from.
Have we missed anything?
Oh,
there's a big question I have, which you can pass if you'd like, but the big question is and I'm sure you speak to him all the time, but if you could tell Tarek, something today, right now, from this couch, what would you?
Oh God.
What would you say? I'm
I
a big believer that he's listening, but that's just me. I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe he loved to listen to podcasts while he worked out. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, who listens to podcasts on the treadmill, you nut?
Well, he's listening to us right now. What's up?
Put on some Jay-Z. Put on some Jay-Z. Don't listen to people chattering in your ear.
Well, here we are, man.
He's listening to us on 2 times speed.
Okay, great.
Because he's
we have been talking pretty slow.
He's really time efficient.
Yeah, okay.
And so I just want him to be proud of me. And, I just want him to feel good about what I'm continuing to do with the foundation of our life that we built together. I don't want to make my life into a shrine for him at all. But I, want to make sure that every day he's honored somehow, whether that's me making an Excel sheet or talking about him or, exercising or doing something that, he would want me to do.
Yeah, living.
Living. Yeah.
Wow.
Woosah.
Yeah. I'm just so grateful for your heart.
Thank you.
And for your courage and for that really great hug you gave me the other day for telling these stories. It really is my honor.
It's a lot to hold, other people's energies, I think.
Yeah.
And you're a petite human. So there's not a lot of space for that to all go.
Yeah. No, I have boundless capacity for your truth. I really do. And I'm so grateful that you're sharing it. That you're living it, that you're going to write about it.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm also hopefully working on some essays and or short stories or a novel or all 3. I'm not entirely sure what form this is all going to take, but, it's, giving myself permission to go forward and live and just do it is, that's everything. That's what it's all about. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you for coming. And because I am a believer that the channels are open, I'm going to say thank you, Tarek. Thank you so much. Rest well. We are taking care of your girls. We love them so much. Thank you for your beautiful life and your beautiful name. That means love. Thanks for listening to podcasts. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Mom Curious podcast. My name is Daniella Rabbani. I am your host, and I would love to continue this conversation at Daniella Rabbani on Instagram. And if you'd be so kind to rate and review, share this podcast, I would be just really grateful. Catch you next time, every Tuesday on the Mom Curious podcast, produced by Hoff Studios. You can find them at Hoff Studios on Instagram as well. All right, have a great day.